I'm Owen Bigland. This is the Inside Edge video blog. Should I purchase a house, a principal residence in 2018? So this is a question, emails that I get, phone calls every single week. I probably get half a dozen inquiries about, Owen, what do you think the market's going to do? I'm thinking about buying in 2018, but prices are crazy. There's all these dark clouds on the horizon with the mortgage tightening and what the NDP government is going to do and etc. So I'm on the fence right now. So this is I'm going to walk you through kind of the questions I would ask someone here on whether they should buy in 2018 in this ultra hot market, which eventually one of these days is going to cool. 2018 might be the year where we finally start to get a little bit of price relief here. Only time will tell. There's so many variables. I've done lots of blogs on it. So the first thing I would ask someone is, first off, what is your situation right now? Are you living at home? Are you renting? What's the situation? Now, some people will tell me I'm living at home. And when that's the situation, you don't mind living at home and your parents don't mind keeping you there, then you're in a pretty good position there. I'm always telling young people to try and milk that for all it's worth. Save as much money as you can. That's the secret too. Take advantage of living at home, but don't just sit on your ass watching TV. Try and work, or you're going to school, try and save as much money as you can, because eventually we are going to get a window here where prices are going to come down. I've done lots of blogs on it where you want to set a strike price where it gets down. If it drops 5% or 10%, you move in. Once it hits that point, make the commitment. Otherwise, if you keep trying to time the bottom and you still think, oh, it's got more ways to go, it drops 5%, but I'll wait, drops 10%, hey, it's just the beginning, you'll probably never get back into the market. You'll never time the bottom until the prices start going back up again, and then you'll realize, yeah, 6 months ago, that was the bottom. So that's the first question. If they're living at home, then sure, milk it for all it's worth. If they tell me, though, they're renting, then I would say I would probably have a little bit more urgency in trying to get your foot in the door as an owner, because you're paying, if you're living in downtown Vancouver right now, you're shelling out $2,000, $2,100, $2,200 for a typical one-bedroom condo. It's not cheap. If you're renting a two-bedroom, you're probably paying $3,000 a month. So that would probably spur you into getting into the market a little sooner. It should. Now, if they're renting, the next question I'll ask them is, do you recognize the value in owning your principal residence and what it takes to get it? So the difficult part to buy a home, the real hurdle for everyone, is getting that down payment together. That is the toughest, really the biggest hurdle by far, is saving that $30,000 or $40,000 or $50,000 or $60,000, whatever you're going to need. You got to talk to a lender first and find out what you can qualify for. It's getting that down payment. But once you get that down payment, that $50,000, people need to realize that once you're there, the holding cost to support that mortgage, cover your strata fees, cover your property taxes and any maintenance, based on today's interest rates, or even based on interest rates, let's say, going up another 3/4 or another point over the next 18 to 24 months, it is about the same as renting. As a matter of fact, if you just look at your interest payments on the mortgage, your maintenance fees and your property taxes, it's actually less than renting. But your full principal and interest payment will probably be slightly more than what you're currently paying, but it's almost a wash. And again, interest rates would have to go up probably up to about 4.5% or 5% before that would balance back out. So you have to recognize that. The hurdle is getting the down payment. Once you're in, your cost to own versus renting are not going to be much different. But again, as I've always blogged about before, leave yourself a buffer. We are going to start to see interest rates going up slowly. Although, that's another thing that I should just address here quickly. We've had 2 quarter-point increases. I understand, talking to some of my mortgage people, that maybe we'll get a couple more in 2018. Hardly groundbreaking, another 0.5 point or a 3/4% increase, but it will make a difference to affordability. But you buy a house today or next year, you can lock in a 5-year rate right now for probably 3% or 3.1%. So you're good for the next 5 years. Now, in 5 years, all bets are off, but let's say interest rates are back up at 4.5% or 5%. You have to allow for that. Leave yourself a buffer for that next increase, which might come down the road 3 or 4 or 5 years later when your mortgage comes up for renewal. So it's all about being conservative there. But once you're in, your cost to buy versus renting aren't a lot more. The next thing I would ask them is, you need shelter. So the alternative is either you rent or you own your principal residence. And what I've blogged about many times before here is I want people to understand the advantages of owning your principal residence. You pay down that mortgage every month. All the capital gain. So you're creating wealth two ways. The first way is, of course, over the long term, you're going to have capital gain. Not every year. We've had a tremendous roll here with price appreciation, but don't be expecting that like we've had here moving forward. But over the next 20 or 25 years, if you hold that property, you can expect some pretty nice capital appreciation on that home. The other way you're creating wealth or equity is you're paying down that mortgage every month. And at today's interest rates, I've done lots of blogs on it, get a mortgage calculator. If you're today making a $1,000 mortgage payment every month, about $800 of that is going straight off the principal. Only about $200 is going to interest. So you are chipping a tremendous amount off that principal right from day one with the current interest rate environment we've got. That's why we have the prices where they're at. So you're creating wealth two ways, long-term capital gain, but you're also chipping down the debt. The big kicker here is never forget that this growth as a principal residence grows tax-free. So that when you decided to retire at 65 or 70 and wanted to sell the house or downsize, all that capital gain will flow to you tax-free. It's the only true tax shelter we get in Canada. RRSPs are great, but when you go to start redeeming your RRSP in retirement, all that income or all that withdrawal is going to come out at your marginal tax rate. So those are kind of the questions I walk through with people when they say, Owen, should I buy or should I stay renting? The choice really, boils down to everyone's different. And again, it also comes down to you have to have a long-term need here. If someone told me I'm thinking about buying, but I might relocate in a couple years to Toronto or Montreal, I would say stay renting. You have to always be able to hold that property for 8 to 10 years. That gives you enough runway to offset any short-term fluctuations in there. If you don't have that 8 to 10 year holding period, then you have to have a plan B. That plan B would be that your strata allows you to rent the property. So that if you were forced to relocate, no problem. Rent the unit out, move to Toronto and rent out there. When the market recovers back in Vancouver here, which it will, if the market's not where you want it at, I should say, let's say you have to get transferred 2 years from now and your condo has lost 15%, then you're able to hold it, rent it out for 3 or 4 years or whenever. The market will recover, it always does, and then sell it when the market's back up again. So you have to have those two plans, either hold it for 8 to 10 minimum or at least a backup plan to be able to rent it if you're forced to sell. So those are the questions I would walk someone through who are on the fence of whether to buy in 2018. I'm Owen Bigland. As always, if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do. I'll see you next week.